Welcome back to another episode of ATTV. I am your host, Ben McLeod, founder of Convey Bio. We've got a special episode here with you today with the Saudi delegation. Very excited to have a conversation about the growing cell and gene therapy industry inside of Saudi Arabia. We'll start with down at the end with Dr. Saeed Osman. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell me a little bit more about your role within the Saudi Arabia delegation?
Thanks, Ben. Thanks to the folks that facilitate. So I'm a consultant hematologist. I'm a physician. I treat patients, and I'm at the King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Centre, and we've come here to give the clinical perspective of what we're dealing with in the cell and gene therapy space.
Excellent. So we'll start with one question for you. So what's the clinical trial landscape in Saudi Arabia look like right now?
Okay, so especially with relevance to cell and gene therapy, I think there's two important factors that we need to think of. Saudi Arabia, as is the case with many of the countries in the region, it's a young country, it's a young population, but there's certain cultural features of it that lend itself to clinical trials, especially in the gene therapy space and for cell and gene therapy. So there's a lot of consanguinity, and you have large family sizes. So a lot of genetic disorders are overrepresented. And if you take, for example, sickle cell, so it falls in the sickle cell belt. In addition to that, you have lots of family members who have sickle cell because you have large family sizes, and then you have consanguinity. So that's one of the reasons why, for example, our colleagues as well are, they've treated patients with the approved gene therapies, and so it's a go-to place for rare diseases, orphan diseases, and then you have, diseases that have a high prevalence, like sickle cell, for example.
Right.
And the other thing is the increasing incidence of cancers in the Eastern Mediterranean region and in these areas anyway. So that's going to lead to a large unmet need. So there's a lot of patients, young patients, less comorbid, who will lend themselves to enrollment in clinical trials. So that's one of the reasons why we invite people to come there, because you get lots of patients who they can enroll into trials.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, I remember we were speaking, I was attending your presentation earlier mentioning that 50% of the Saudi population is under the age of 30, which is just bonkers from North America standards. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. Anyway, we'll move on to you, Enj Khalid. Thank you for being on. Can you tell me a little bit more about your role within the delegation?
Thank you very much, Ben, for organizing this, and the thanks extended to the facilitate team. My name is Khalid Al-Lanazi. My background is in bioprocess engineering, and I work in Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources among a team who oversee the manufacturing operations for the pharma and the biotech industry.
Excellent. So given your background in manufacturing, what do you see as some of the major trends to be aware of inside of the space?
Thank you for this question. So we're observing a lot of trends in the biopharma, generally speaking, and certain technologies more tailored towards cell and gene therapy. So I think one of the first common observations that we started to see, the biopharma industry is starting to be shifted from the one-size-fit-all sort of a treatment to a tailored personalized medicines, where those medicines are being cascaded to patients with specific genetic diseases. Addressing the elephant in the room, AI is actually being implemented a lot of in a lot of those emerging technologies. We started to see a lot of AI integrations in the cellular selection, filtrations, and the development phases of conducting or advancing those therapeutics in the industry. With those trends, there comes also sophistications that we started to witness. The cost of goods basically is going up high. The cost of development, cell and gene therapy is considered one of the most labor-intensive industries in the world. The proximity of integrating those manufacturing processes to hospital setup and being able to deliver them with the proper qualities and the proper standards to the patients is also something that comes along with those medications. We're acknowledging this. Coming from manufacturing point of view, in Saudi Arabia, we're acknowledging those technologies. We're always keeping in touch with our colleagues, the ecosystem, and the partners in the industry, trying to find what are the key points in the infrastructure that are needed to enhance the industry and ensure the localization of such technologies are very conceivable and achievable.
Fantastic. And then finally, Professor Ahmed, thank you for being on here. Can you tell me a little bit more about your role within the delegation?
Thank you, Ben. My name is Ahmed Al Sagir. I'm the Executive Director of King Abdullah International Medical Research Center, which is the R&D arm of the National Guard Health Affairs, and it has multiple sites in Saudi Arabia. I'm a consultant and a professor of adult hematology and stem cell transplantation at King Abdul Aziz Medical City of the National Guard in Riyadh, and professor at King Saud bin Abdul Aziz University for Health Sciences.
Most excellent. So earlier got a chance to learn a little bit more about the Saudi National Biotech Strategy, and would love to learn a little bit more about the research center that you're a part of, what role it plays in that strategy.
Sure. Well, knowing about the strategy, which was launched early last year by our Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, focusing on 4 domains: vaccine development, genomics, and integrating genomics into healthcare, and biomanufacturing. These 3 domains are a focus of KMER, and the 4th domain is the plant optimization, aiming for self-sufficiency and agriculture improvement. For the cell and gene therapy and manufacturing, that's a main focus and strategic project at KMER, with also vaccine development. KMER has the Saudi Biobank, which will contribute into the Saudi Human Genome Project, the cord blood banking, the stem cell donor registry and stem cell research, and the iPSC banking. All of these will contribute into innovative therapeutics and intervention, and hopefully will improve the health, or impact the health and the economy as well. In addition to this, we have platforms for vaccine development, and we have already contributed into the vaccine development, whether at the early stage or the translational or at the clinical trial stage.
You guys are very busy.
Yeah, we are. Actually.
That's exciting. I'm
Absolutely.
glad there's a strategy that you're looking at all these different biologics and vaccines, and then you're also considering advanced therapies like cell and gene as well. Excellent. We'll go back to you, Dr. Osman. So in terms of collaborators wanting to come to Saudi Arabia, what's in it for them?
Oh, that's a really good question. You know, it always makes me think of a quote in the cell and gene therapy space that came from somebody from Johnson & Johnson. I think it was one of the heads of the chief scientific officer, who said, we have to collaborate at the speed of science. Yeah, and that's very true. Now, so what's in it for them? So we had, I'll give an anecdote. So we had an advanced therapy forum like event some months ago, and we had people reaching out to us from California and from the Boston area saying, can we come and participate in your meeting, because we've got this gene therapy that we've developed for a very rare disease, but it's really rare where we are, and most of the patients are where you are. The patient population is in the Middle East and in Saudi, and many of you have published. So there is, for academicians, for scientists, for researchers, you know, there is, what they get out of it is a science, and able to understand diseases more and come up with therapeutics for these rare diseases, because they're more prevalent over there. So, you know, you'll be able to enroll more patients in a trial. And then even if a therapy is developed, then the beneficiaries are more concentrated in that sort of area. So there's something in it for academicians. Now, in terms of other industry players, we know that, well, we know what the landscape has been like in the biotech, maybe in Europe and North America for the last few years. It's been in the doldrums maybe, right?
Right.
So, but things are growing. The National Biotech Strategy is a catalyst. There's a real appetite, there's real interest to develop manufacturing, to develop R&D. So it's a growing sector, and so you can almost be sure that growth is going to be in double figures. So whether you're an academician, whether you're in the biotech industry, manufacturing platforms, or whether it's big pharma, in terms of clinical trials, because for reasons that we mentioned. There is something in it for everybody from that regard.
Right.
For trials, for opportunities for science. The only thing that we need to overcome is the fear of venturing out of our comfort zones.
Right.
And as we said earlier today, there are opportunities for everybody, and there's opportunities for science, for investors, but opportunities for patients. And that's what we're here for, really, to provide opportunities for patients. And if a trial happens more quickly, where you have more patients and you get approval more quickly, the beneficiaries aren't just in that area, but they're everywhere else. And we've been able to, enroll patients into rare disease trials quite quickly. So there's something in it for everyone. So welcome to Saudi.
Yeah, I remember you saying earlier in your presentation, which I got to attend, the wide variety of different rare diseases and the large patient populations that are just present and waiting and in need of these. So it really is a growing market in that regard. Very good. Coming back to you, Khalid, in terms of localized manufacturing, this is becoming more and more of a topic inside of the industry. It's quite important. How is KSA approaching that?
Thank you for the question, Ben. So, looking at Saudi Arabia landscape and infrastructure, as mentioned by my colleagues, so 60% of clinical trials are actually of cell and gene therapy are happening in Saudi Arabia. When you look at the pharmaceutical Saudi market, valued around 9 billion, it's 1/3 of the MENA region. In terms of manufacturing, landscaping, and presence in the global map, there is a need to really have some sort of a manufacturing, not a need, but aspirations for Saudi to be the manufacturing hub for the rest of the Islamic countries and the MENA region as well. So Saudi Arabia is really foreseeing that, and we're acknowledging the fact that we are well positioned to be in the landscape of the biopharma manufacturing and play the export hub. Saudi Arabia is working on a lot of initiatives and strategies, as mentioned by my colleague Dr. Ahmed. National Biotech Strategy has been announced by His Royal Highness. National Industrial Strategy has defined the pharma and the biopharma industries as the key industries. Number of initiatives are there to support partners and companies that want to localize their manufacturing operations in Saudi. Loans and grants are available in Saudi Arabia, depending on the stage of development. Some of the projects can get covered up to 75% of their cost with loans. So by the end of the day, the government is ambitious. We as workers in this domain, we are working really hard to put things together, and we are going to get there. So we do see this industry as one of the key industries that we need to localize it in Saudi Arabia, and for that reasons we're here, and we're really encouraging everyone to really attend the Facilitate 2026 in Saudi Arabia and observe the development for yourself.
Right, we're still pretty far away from there right now, so yes. I can imagine over the next year and a half how much more it'll grow. And one of the lines that really stood out to me from earlier as well was your aspirations, kind of in the same vein as Ireland, how Ireland really became a biotech hub servicing Europe, and Singapore became a biotech hub as well in terms of servicing the countries around it. And so there really is an opportunity for Saudi Arabia to do that as well. So really interesting to see how that's shaping up. It's been done before, and I have no doubt it can be done again. It's been done in other parts of the world with Ireland and Singapore. Coming back to you, Professor Ahmed, how can international biotech companies collaborate or work with KMER, your research center?
It could be at I would say different platforms, different levels. We're welcoming partnership and collaboration, and we see this as strategic, and it would accelerate and enhance actually the capabilities and the projects that's taking place at KMER, be it at the basic research level, for example, having joint lab, joint projects, or translational research, or the clinical trials. We have number of clinical trials in collaboration with pharma industry from phase 1 to phase 4 clinical trials. We have actually, and part of the Vision 2030 of Saudi Arabia, established the Saudi Clinical Trial Enterprise, where it's a network of stakeholders, healthcare facilities, and pharma industry, in order to enhance the capabilities of clinical trial setup in the country, and attracting more clinical trials and enhancing the recruitment of patients into these clinical trials. And we have already led number of clinical trials, multi-center clinical trials at the national and international level. Some of them already published in high-impact journals.
Right on. So lots of opportunity, not just limited to a couple different areas, really across the entire breadth of different clinical studies and trials. There's opportunities to work with you folks.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Don't go away just yet. We have a bit more from the Saudi delegation, so we'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, welcome back to the final segment of the Saudi delegation episode. Thank you for staying with us. I'm here with Dr. Al Sagir. Can you tell me a little bit more? Thank you for being on the panel. Can you tell me a little bit more about your role within the delegation?
Oh, absolutely. First, let me say I'm so happy to be with you. I'm following you on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you very much.
So I'm one of the, how many followers do you have? 500,000 or something?
No, 25,000.
25,000. All right. So I'm one of these 25,000. So if you have a global audience, and I'm one of the this global audience, and I'm happy to be with you. And as I said earlier in the conversation, my name is Dr. Al Sagir. I'm a hematologist by profession, and I chair the National Committee for CAR T-cell. It's part of the healthcare system, trying to make sure that there's an access to this technology and alikes of the technologies.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm glad that you're a fan. That's great. So we've got one question for you. It's
Sure.
a real simple question. Why Saudi Arabia?
Sure. So myself in the presentation earlier today and the colleagues, we spoke about the healthcare system in Saudi Arabia. And there are 3 reasons I can think of now. First, we have an excellent healthcare system. So, in our country, there are about 1,000 bone marrow transplantations that's happening nationwide, and in 30 million population like Saudi Arabia, this is one of the largest transplants that could be done in one nation, especially with the prevalence and incidence of diseases and the complexity of this care in addition to other cares. The healthcare system is also very good in adopting new technologies. Last month and the month before, the first robotic cardiac transplantation happened in Saudi Arabia. The first robotic advanced cardiac procedure in inserting pump support also happened in Saudi Arabia. So these are evidence of how new technologies are adopted very quickly, and our system is very agile with that regard. The second is the prevalence of unique diseases. So we have lots of diseases that are the subject of cell and gene therapy, so including sickle cell disease and much rare and orphan diseases, and we elaborated on some of these during the presentation. And the third is a very vibrant ecosystem. So it's a system that encourages new investment. There is a huge investment within the Saudi government to bring a newer technology in the pharmaceutical industry in large, and specifically in cell and gene therapies.
Fantastic. No, as we alluded to earlier, it's great that you're kind of drawing on the inspiration of Ireland and Singapore in the past, and really kind of becoming one of those biotech hubs that's servicing an area that perhaps is somewhat underserved. So it's great to see where you guys are going, and I look forward to one day hopefully being able to view Saudi Arabia in person.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.